Hi, I'm Brooks King, and the topic I chose to talk about today involves acid rain, disease, rich taking from the poor, radioactive materials, and the world running out of energy. Now, no, I'm not talking about something out of an action film or fiction novel, but I'm talking about something that affects you and me today. I'm talking about fossil fuels and natural resources. But how does that affect you? Well, there's going to be voting in our lifetime, in which we have to decide what we want to use as our energy consumption. And our children will either benefit from this or take harm from this. And it's like our mother used to say, we better leave the world better than we found it. So, all of my sources are found from a .gov website and taken from an article by Gina McCarthy, the head of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Now, specifically more about fossil fuels, they're made up of coal, oil, and natural gas, which are mostly made of hydrocarbons. Now, oil is a liquid at ambient temperatures made up mostly of carbon and hydrogens, and we find it through drilling. Now, there's new technology being created to increase the efficiency and the protection of the environment with drilling. For example, instead of drilling straight down, horizontal drilling or directional drilling are far more efficient with the new technology and safer for the environment. Now, oil supplies 37% of all U.S. energy needs, and oil consumption has increased in the past few years. But how does that oil affect us today? Well, it affects low gas prices and it affects the stock exchange directly. The increased demand for oil drove up the stock prices 9%. Now, a negative thing that comes with oil is oil spills, which the most recent of which being in 2016 off the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico oil spill let 210 million gallons of oil into the ocean and had a continuous flow for 85 days. Now, the good-ish things about oil spills is there's only ever been 44 that have affected U.S. waters. And since 1970, the annual number of large spills decreased from 8.0 to 1.8 annually. Now, coal is mostly comprised of carbon-heavy rock, and there's two ways of mining it: underground mining with heavy machinery and strip mining. Now, coal provides 39% of all U.S. electricity, and each person uses 3.7 tons of coal annually. And the largest consumer of coal? Texas. Now, natural gases are composed mostly of methane, and natural resources or natural gas is too expensive to extract regularly, and it requires fracking and pipelines are needed to be built to transport the gas. Now, natural gas provides 35% of U.S. energy, and it also provides 33% of U.S. industrial consumption, but residential use is only at about 17%. Now, enough about fossil fuels, let's talk about natural resources. So, some alternative energy sources consist of renewable and non-renewable energy resources, such as wind, hydropower, and solar energy. Now, solar energy accounts for 1.6% of U.S. electricity, and over 1.47 million solar panels have been built over 48 states. And solar panels offset 70 million metric tons of CO2 emissions, which is the equivalent of planting 1.2 billion trees. Now, hydropower energy represents 17% of all energy production, and according to energy.gov, Washington got 70% of its energy from hydropower. 11 states also saw their 10% of their energy came from hydropower. And the largest dam is in China, and it has enough power to supply 80 to 90 million households with energy. Some issues, though, with hydropower is that dams can affect ecosystems and the environment directly, such as fish or other animals being seriously affected. And the solution is that hydropower doesn't always require dams, but they can also use generators to get their water power. Now, lastly, wind energy. Wind is also found to be able to reduce 20 to 35% of U.S. energy needs by 2030. And the industry also produces 100,000 plus jobs. Now, 41 states are currently using wind energy, whereas Asia is currently the largest consumer of wind energy at about 53%, and the U.S. is about third with 16% usage. But it also helped avoid 201 million metric tons of CO2 emissions. So with that knowledge of both fossil fuels and renewable resources and natural resources to be said, fossil fuels make up a large percentage of electricity and energy use, but it's unsure about the remainder of how long we're going to be able to use it for. And it tends to be environmentally unsafe. But with more efficient and safe technology being created, some could say that this could be still our route that we want to go. Whereas renewable energy recap that it doesn't account for as much energy, but it saves the US millions of metric tons of CO2 emissions. and it creates a large amount of jobs with it. But it's still in its early ages of usage, so there's a lot of uncertainties with how much of the burden it can actually carry when it comes to energy consumption. But it's a promising route for the future, and some that say that we need to take that route. So with that said, this is fossil fuels and renewable resources. Thank you.